it's Hattie here and welcome to my channel. So today I wanted to share another suburban home. This is going to be called Hillside House and it's a blue 30 by 20 suburban house which is highly styled on the one that's next door. So some of you might have already seen this house before, which is actually really strange kind of mentioning it because it's a really weird thought that basically I've got this finished house in my Let's Play videos at the moment that I'm doing and here it is just being built. So it's a bit strange, but I've been doing a lot of suburban builds recently and this is hopefully going to be the last one for at least 2 or 3 weeks. So what I'm going to do is instead I'm going to be doing other houses. Like I'm going to focus on Tudor because I love Tudor and I haven't done a Tudor build for a while. And I'm also going to be focusing on, I suppose, like more, let's say, exotic houses. So maybe some kind of Spanish or Italian, you know, something that's just a bit unusual, you know, like a Mediterranean kind of style, I guess. Something, you know, just different things basically, just different kind of houses around the world. And I want to do something like that because that's something that I did enjoy doing on the gallery and I just haven't done it for a while. So I'm going to go back to that and I will do that within like the next, you know, week or so. You'll see more builds up from me, but this is going to be the last one for a little bit. But I'm going to come back with the suburban legacy because that's kind of what it's turning into a little bit, because it's absolutely crazy the amount of suburban houses that I have created, and that's really all my channel kind of consists of at the moment. I mean, obviously there's like a few kind of changes to that, but I want to just try and diverse a little bit. So I'm going to be trying a lot of different things out very shortly, very soon. I couldn't decide what word to use then. But yes, so this house turns out to be quite blue, I guess. And you will see that when I do start to put in the windows and the landscaping and things, because the general theme of this house was to try to keep it blue. And there's no real reason for this, just that I wanted to experiment and just try different colours, because I think blue's quite a different colour to go for. It's quite an unusual colour, and it's quite a bold colour in The Sims 4 as well, because they've got some windows and doors that often aren't used by people that can be blue. So I thought I'd have a go at trying to incorporate those into the build, which I did do within the end. So I was happy with how that turned out. And yes, so it does end up with that. And I was just really trying to make the house, I mean, look different, look unique in its own way, but still have new things. So for instance, I used some stuff from the Spooky Stuff pack, which came out at, well, the start of October this month. And basically, when that came out, I was really surprised with like how well they've kind of done with the wood texturings and also the floors and things, because what I tend to look for, like whenever I buy a stuff pack, is if I can actually reuse the stuff in that stuff pack. So for instance, like if it was just a haunted, or like, okay, spooky, I call it the Haunted Mansion pack. I have no idea why I call it that because it's not called that. But the Spooky Stuff pack, if I was buying it and let's say I only had like pumpkins in and things that were purely for Halloween and only Halloween, then I'd be a lot more reluctant to buy it. But then like when, for instance, it's got wallpapers that are different and floorings that I could use for pretty much any season, like any month, any time, you know, it would be fine. Like I could use it throughout the year. Then it's a lot more of an easier decision for me. So yes, I was very happy with that, and you will see that because I'm really into the woods that they have included with the Spooky Stuff pack. And it was actually a close save because what happened was, a couple of weeks ago I did a suburban house and somebody very kindly told me that the photos on the walls change when you include the Spooky Stuff pack photos or pictures paintings, whatever you want to call them, on the wall. They do change, so you know, be careful. And what happened was I was actually experimenting with it the other day, and I nearly gave myself a heart attack. It was the most scariest thing I've ever encountered on The Sims 4. So I was very happy to hear that advice, and I did not use them in this house. So that's actually quite good to know, because obviously I wouldn't have figured that out until I actually played with the stuff pack, which could have potentially been quite a while until I did. It just depends like when I get around to doing let's play videos or challenges and things. So yes, that was an interesting story. And I mean, everything else within the house, I really did try to keep the centre the same as Ellsworth Manor, which is next door. And the reason being is because I was so proud of that house when I did it. And I mean, a lot of my creations, I'm very reluctant about like putting them on the gallery. Even some of the ones that are on the gallery at the moment, I mean, even the ones that have got like thousands of downloads and, you know, fantastic comments from people and stuff, I still get really unsure about whether they should stay up there. Seriously, like, I get really unsure. And then, you know, it's all just kind of like personal opinion, but for me, I've got to say, like, Ellsworth Manor is probably, if not one of my favourites. I've got to say my favourites, like, obviously the Tudor builds that I do, but, you know, it just kind of depends. But I think for a suburban house, it just looks very real. So I did try to incorporate that in this build as well. And you can see, like, I'm trying to add some blue wallpapers because I wanted to make it look a little bit brighter, a bit unusual. And I was a little bit reluctant about using blue at first because I was kind of thinking about how much of a cold colour it is, because it is a really, really cold colour. And for some reason, I think especially on the interior, like, not so much the exterior, but for instance, if I had a blue lounge, I could potentially feel quite cold. Even, you know, just even if it was like a hot room, the colour would make me feel cold, if that makes any sense whatsoever. But I always found, like, I guess it's a kind of psychological thing. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this. But basically, like, when I had like a room at my old house, if it was a dark blue or like, you know, any shade of blue, basically, it would just feel colder to me. And then like an orange room would just naturally feel warmer. It's a really weird thing to say, but you know, I've said it now, so I can't take it back. And you know, that was just kind of my thought process on this house. So a lot of the rooms do feel like they would be quite cold, I guess. So the lounge I did actually do in a blue colour, but I'm going to show you that in a little bit because I'm going to talk about the landscaping, which is one of my favourite parts in the build. And I thought I'd try something different this time, and I would do a stripe with the plants. So you can see, like, I've tried to make a different stripe effect with the white and the blue and try and contrast them. So I was really trying to do that, and I was trying to make it look neat around the front as well, because I'm big on stones. I am literally huge on stones at the moment, so I thought I'd use some blue ones. I often use the grey ones, but I thought, you know, sticking with the theme of the house, that's why that happened. Yes, and the house is called Hillside House. I mentioned it at the start of the video, but I called it that name because I can get quite uncreative with the names. So I was trying to think about, like, what's in the atmosphere, like what's around the house, what kind of surroundings is it in. And because I built it in Willow Creek's a very peculiar world because it has literally everything in. I think the game producers literally sat down, they were like, okay, let's just stick everything in this world. Everything you can think of, it's in there. Like, I'm pretty sure I've seen like a city somewhere like in the distance or something like that. And you know, it's got like hillside, countryside, whatever really. And even though we can't get to those parts, like, because we can't actually openly walk around the world freely, which I would obviously love to do, but you know, we can't. But I was kind of thinking that because like there's a hill background, like just kind of to the right of the house, I just thought, you know, hill, and then because it's to the side of the village, it was side, and then it turned out to be Hillside House. So that was the process in that. But if you have any requests for names, and things, like seriously just let me know, because if you come up with any good names for houses, then don't be embarrassed, just let me know because I'm very uncreative when it comes to naming my houses. Even if you want to name them after yourself, like if you've got a name like Stephen and you want to have the house being called Stevington House, let me know. And that's actually not a bad name at all off the top of my head. But, that happens and I'm fine with that. Like, it's up to you and it's, personal opinion and stuff, but that would be a cool thing to potentially do because, it would uh it would make the process a lot easier for me to basically just get the house sorted, because I spend like a good 10 to 15 minutes just kind of thinking about a name after I've built the house or even during. And sometimes I end up asking people that have literally had nothing to do with The Sims and they get very frustrated at me because they're like, I have nothing to do with The Sims. Why are you asking these questions? And I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. But yes, so whatever you think on that, just let me know. The garden was a pretty small garden, but I thought the plants really took priority in this garden because I really wanted to make it look so pretty. And there's a lot going on in the back, like behind the back of this build, which we can't actually see, but there's lots of like beautiful flowers and there's even like a little barbecue area. So I was just kind of thinking that while I was building this, like I just kind of wanted the basics, like a place to sit, a place to go in the pool, and then everything else wouldn't really matter because the Sims could still go out the back garden and explore the world, so it wouldn't be that much of a big deal, which is really nice actually. So yes, I was very happy with how that turned out, and I was just trying to experiment with the pool as well, but I thought I'd leave it in so I could just basically show you the process that I went through trying to do the pool, because it can get quite like it can be quite a long process, and it can get quite time consuming and things, but it's just one of those things. Like I do enjoy just kind of experimenting with different things, and I'm really into rock pools at the moment. I don't know what this is or where it's come from, but I really like putting rock pools into the garden to make them look a little bit more natural and I suppose kind of fit in with the landscaping a little bit. I'm trying to play around with the idea of having like, in my next build or my next build in the future, that I would basically have like a full grass pool, but I don't know how I'm going to incorporate that into the house. I will have to see. But yes, so there was a lot going on here. There was a lot of like little pathways and things, which I was trying to fit in with that bit of, I mean, you can see it, like if you look, the pathway just kind of leads off to that dry area of grass, which I was trying to make happen, like I was trying to direct it in that way. I'm going to leave in so you could basically have this house on the same plot as I use, so I will leave in the details for that and I will let you know in the comments like what plot I use, like if you want to use the same one, so it does have that exact effect there, like if you're worried about that. Yes, so lots going on this weekend, a lot was happening. In fact, I had a really bad weekend which I will talk about because I like to share my personal life on my channel, and gives a bit more insight to actually what I've been doing. So if you didn't already know this, and like only a couple of people know this actually, but basically I have to travel back to England every month because I have to attend church, and that is a bit of a weird thing to some people but basically it's kind of like, I suppose it's a bit hardcore, but it's because I'm getting married in April and I don't live in England anymore, so I need to travel back to basically be able to get married there in the church. And I was supposed to go this weekend. My fiance had a business trip in Sweden, so I met him at the airport, so I had to drop my dog off at the kennel and then I drove like, I'm going to say like an hour and a half or 2 hours to the airport, and it was really late. It was like 2 a.m. by the time I got there, and I was waiting for him at the hotel, and he came through, like he came into the room and he looked devastated. And it turned out that he lost his passport, or it got stolen, like he doesn't know which, because he had a connecting flight from Sweden. So he doesn't know. But basically, his passport got lost. And because it's a British passport, it means that, you know, we can't just travel on our ID cards back to England. So it's very difficult. So we literally went back, literally just like went home. It wasn't even worth waiting around. Like, we didn't. I just said, like, no, we're not waiting around, because Lost Property didn't open for like another 3 hours or something, because it's like a ridiculous airport which closes. If you've heard of a closing airport, I mean, some airports do if they're small. This one was particularly small. So yes, we ended up going back, got the dog from the kennel, and then I sat down on Saturday thinking, what should I do with my spare time? So I thought I would finish off this build, which has been sitting in my catalogue. I can't talk today. In my catalogue for about, I'm going to say, 2 weeks. So I thought it'd be a good idea to basically do that, and it was so nice. Honestly, it was such a lovely feeling. Just kind of sat down on Saturday, just decorating, like having a proper think about this house, what I wanted it to look like, and it was really nice to just kind of take my mind off things. So, so yeah, I mean, it was a bit of a stressful weekend, but you know, hey, happens to the best of us. So that's what happened. But you know, it's just one of those things. Like, you know, things do get lost. Yes. So, I mean, the general kind of style of this house was that I would have a very like small tint on the wallpaper. I guess it is a tint of blue on the wallpapers that I used, or at least I hope that is it. I mean, I'm not too sure. And then in here I was doing the kitchen flooring, which it didn't really work out being like this, but like I wanted to leave everything in this video. So even when I messed up, like I wanted to show you the whole process, because I mean, for me, this isn't my flooring. Like, this just does not feel like the flooring that I would choose. But to others, like, you might, you know, you might happen to like this, and you might want to use it yourself or do something with it, because sometimes when I see a design from somebody else, I mean, not necessarily like I like the whole thing, but sometimes I think, actually, that's a nice idea. I'll try something like that, and then I'll put my own twist on it, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I was really just experimenting here with the different floorings, which did actually take up quite a lot of time in the video, but you know, it's one of those things. And it's the kitchen flooring, which I always try to do a little bit differently, and I always try to do something that just, you know, stands out a little bit, because it's the kitchen, and the kitchen does tend to be tiled in a lot of houses, so I thought it was important to leave it in and show you really what was going on. So that is like what took up a lot of my time. It really did. But you know, it's a long process, and I really, really love centerpieces in the kitchen, like on the floor. I think it's because I used to live in a house which had a huge centerpiece on the kitchen floor, and it was black and white, because it had like black and white tiles. The whole kitchen was black and white, and it was a very beautiful kitchen. It was, in fact, one of the nicest kitchens I've seen, I think. I mean, bear in mind, it was probably like more than 10 years ago I even lived in this house, but just from memory, like, I remember thinking back then, I really like this kitchen. But it was so big. It was such a big kitchen. And that was a problem as well, because it was so big. It just looked so empty, and you know, we had to put like a huge table in there and all sorts. But yes, that was a very, very long time ago. In fact, it was probably even longer than 10 years ago. So yes, I mean, I'm very keen on that idea, and I do try to keep my kitchens more or less the same size in The Sims 4, because I don't like them being too big. If I ever get enough space, then I will always include a bar, but sometimes I don't, surprisingly. Sometimes I just don't have enough space, or I want to include something else in there, so that's why that happens. And then I thought I would just try to brighten up this area, because it was looking really dark for some reason. I couldn't figure out what it was, but the staircase, just where that was, it was looking really gloomy. So yes, and then I was trying to find a nice rug to put in the middle, and I was trying to fill up the hallway a little bit. And I wanted some hints of modern as well, like in that. I wanted to include some modern plants and things. And there was a really lovely space there. I was thinking, what do I put in this space? Because it's actually really nice. So I put a little table there. And I just tried to fill the house up with just those really lovely paintings that I like. I've also started using my own Sims paintings. So I've been doing that in some of my most recent builds. I mean, maybe not this one, I can't remember if I did or not, but I do like to do that. So basically what I do is in every single house, I move in a family before I've even decided like who's going to live there. And it's really just to test out whether the house is playable and whether that they can get through to every room and the outside and it's all accessible. So the family that you would have seen at the start are not going to be living in this house. They were just a temporary one that I got that just happened to be that family. But I actually moved them into a different house completely, which is Eco Home, if you're wondering what that is. They just fitted in really nicely there. So yes, I mean, had a lot of ideas for the architecture of the house and where everything would go, and I'm really into long rugs at the moment. I do like that. The only problem with them is they don't necessarily blend in to one another, so it can look like it's just kind of two rugs stick together. Only if you're looking really closely though, like you have to be looking so closely for that, because you have to. You just have to look so closely for that. But yes, so the lounge was a bit of an interesting, unusual room, I suppose. I did it in a bit of an unusual place as well, because usually I would have the sofa in the middle, but I actually wanted to do it a little bit differently this time and have the sofa near to the front of the room, so I'd actually have more space to work with literally everything else that I could potentially put in this room. So you will see that. I also used so many cheats throughout. I always use cheats, and it's something that I never talk about when I'm building, and I definitely should tell you like the cheats and stuff that I use, because you know it's kind of helpful. So I'm going to do a separate video on that, but just so you know, like I do use BB move objects. That's the most important cheat that I use. It's the one that I could not sim without. I really couldn't. I couldn't have been here now without BB move objects, because yes, it's a very good one. I mean, I try and use it in moderation, because sometimes like if I was blending cabinets and things, then that can get a little bit glitchy, like especially when I'm playing and they can be, you know, twitching and stuff. So I try and use it in moderate amount, so in moderation. So that was good. And I thought I'd use a big TV, which is in this house, because I really love TVs. I do. I've got a real thing with big TVs. I've always grown up with having huge TVs for some reason, and I just think it's one of those things, like it just kind of says to me that the family can just sit down, you know, just like around the sofa, and they can all just really socialize like while they're watching something on the television, which the Sims do, and it's actually really nice to see them when they're all just kind of like sat down talking to each other and multitasking. So I really enjoy putting stuff like that into the builds. And then I thought I would, of course, include a fireplace, because I do love putting fireplaces in. I found it difficult to find a good place in this lounge to basically put one in. And I wanted to put a doll's house as well, because I would definitely imagine that this family would have children. And I really like that. I really like that kind of layout where the kids could be playing with the doll's house and the adults could be sat down watching TV or reading a book or, you know, playing chess. And it's just one of those things. So I just think that it's a really nice feature to have. And it's something that a lot of families do actually have, which, you know, some people don't put in their builds, but I always like to, because that is how it was when I was growing up. And also going around to friends' houses, in fact maybe friends more so than me, they always had like their stuff out everywhere in the house. Like they had like that one kind of, I don't know, I suppose kids drawer or like kids trunk, I guess, in the lounge, where, you know, they could just go and pick out a toy and that would be it really. And so it's a bit of a playroom downstairs, which is quite nice, I suppose. The study I wanted to keep like really, really modern and glamorous because I haven't actually done a study that has been like, I suppose, with a glamorous look for a while. I've been doing more like casual studies, so in the way that I would do kind of a study that would have more or less the same layout. It would be just kind of like the desk would be up against the wall, and it wouldn't really be a formal, classy study. It would be more for, a family that doesn't need the room for anything important, like, business meetings and stuff. But I thought for this room, I mean, just kind of like personal opinion, I thought that the people that would live in the house might have some, meetings in this room or whatever. Like they might have all their stuff out on show. So I did include the business board, which is, I don't know, it could fit in potentially, but I couldn't decide. So I left it in anyway, so you could just see it. But if you want to take it out, it's not a big deal. You can do that, and that's all good. So I mean, you can just see like how it finished off in the end. Basically, it was just a very white room, and then we're gonna go on to the kitchen. So I did the kitchen in my own tastes. I really did. And my own tastes being that I do love to put the counters over the windows because I really like that effect that they're just kind of arched. I know it's kind of a personal opinion, but there was no way of really avoiding it in this room either because of how many windows I did put into the house. So it does make it really bright, but it does also have its negative effects, which is obviously it interferes with the kitchen. If you did want to take out any of the windows or literally anything to do with the house, seriously, I'm absolutely fine with all that. Like, I love people being creative with my builds. I love hearing when people have redecorated and things because I like the whole creativity side of it, and I like to know that my builds are used because that's what I do it for. I do it to basically, I make these videos to help people out when they play and hopefully, improve gameplay a little bit, I suppose. I don't know. But yes, so if you ever feel like, you want to change anything, then go ahead because it's just a creative game. Like, it's just for having fun. This is like my personal tastes on this room, but everyone's going to have their different opinions. And I mean, when I first started building, when I was probably, I'm going to say 8 years old, when I first started playing The Sims, I had a really, really different idea on what I liked for the interior. So, back then I would literally build a box and I would have a few little various items inside the house. I'd be lucky to even put a front door on the house. It would be very, very empty, very basic. There'd be no walls inside, and that's because I like to see what all the Sims were actually up to and stuff. But now, I mean, I'm literally a life Simmer. Like, I've been playing The Sims for a really long time, but I mean, I think my builds now have really progressed from that. But I think in terms of where I place rooms and things, I try to make it very realistic looking. And some people don't like that. Some people like a lot more open space and stuff. So it really just depends. But whatever you decide, I am not offended in whatever way. And it's all about having fun, and if you're having fun, then that is what matters. So, yes, this is how the kitchen basically finished off, but I really liked that fish tank there, surprisingly. I thought that it really went with the room, and it's difficult to match things in The Sims 4 because we don't have a colour wheel, which I really, really wish that we did have because it would make life so much easier when it did come to matching stuff, which I can struggle with, matching certain things as well. I mean, if we had a colour wheel, it would be so much easier to be able to match things. But, it's difficult, like, when we don't have all those things. And we don't have much choice at the moment either. I think maybe in, like, another year or so, or even more than that, there will be so much choice for The Sims 4. There'll be, like, different stuff packs and things. I mean, I remember when The Sims 3 was, like, it had pretty much all the expansion packs out, and they just announced Sims 4 coming out, I think, like, when all the expansion packs were out for Sims 3, and they had so much choice. There was so much that you could download and you could get, and that really helped. So I'm hoping that we'll have choice like that for The Sims 4 eventually. I mean, it will never be like as creative as the choice that we could have potentially had for Sims 3 because of the colour wheel. Yes, so we'll just have to see. But I mean, I'm just kind of going with what I've got, unfortunately. But I mean, I suppose what they have done in a way is they have basically made like a few ranges of furniture, which I found out a couple of months ago. So what they've actually done instead is they haven't just placed in like random bits and bobs for the house. It's supposed to be actually a set of stuff, which I didn't actually know. But so for instance, they will have like French country style, which would be like a certain sofa, a certain rug, a certain window. They'd have a Gothic style, you know, which would be like, again, like a certain sofa, you know, bed, all sorts like that. So it's supposed to match, I guess, but I just mix all the different styles. So you'll see like bits of Gothic, bits of Renaissance just in my builds. You will see literally everything. But this room was a bit of an interesting room because I wanted to imagine that it had actually been professionally done. And I was watching a program ages ago, and it's a program that I've been absolutely obsessed with for a while. But it's an interior design program that happens in England, and basically what happens is there's a few contestants, and they're just kind of like amateur like interior designers, and they've got like a real spark for design, but they're not professional or anything. And they basically enter this program to design a room in someone's house, and they all do a room each, and then whoever does the best room basically wins. And I took a lot of inspiration from that whilst I did this particular room because it looks very different to the rest of the house, and it looks quite unique in the terms of like colours and stuff I used in this room as well. But I wanted to make it different. Like I wanted to have a room that would really kind of stand out. And it's not going to be to everyone's taste. I mean, whilst I'm watching this back, like, I don't know, I'm kind of debating whether it's even mine. But, you know, it was just one of those things that I was just kind of thinking about at that point. I was thinking, actually, it would be quite a nice idea to incorporate that somewhere along the way. So this is the only room that I went particularly crazy on this build. Like, everything else is really just kind of basic, you know, in terms of the colours used and stuff. This was the room that just stood out to me. And, you know, it's a little bit different. And every room isn't going to be to my tastes, like, while I'm decorating this. Even though I'm building it, I do try to have a little bit of a mix because, you know, I'm never going to walk into, like, every single person's house or, like, every single Sim's house, whatever, and find that I like every single room in there because it doesn't happen in real life, so it's not going to happen in The Sims, in one of my builds anyway. So yes, I thought here would be a good idea to basically add some towels, add some pictures just into the bathroom. I used a wood on the walls because I thought that it looked quite nice, it looked bright, and I like small bathrooms. I just think, you know, they're not the most interesting rooms to have in a house because, you know, without a hot tub and stuff, it's just kind of like a basic room. So I like to keep them small but bright as well because I don't like to have them too dark. And then we're just going on to the upstairs, which was a different layout to what I would usually do. Basically, I was trying to figure out, like, basically what the limit would be on how big I could make the rooms and get away with it. So I already decided that I wanted a seating area upstairs because I didn't feel like the lounge was big enough, and also I do like 2 seating areas. Maybe 2 or 3, just kind of scattered around the house. Even in my smaller builds, I still like that. So I was trying to figure out an like alternative layout to, yeah, basically what the plan was. And I was really thinking about like kids' rooms at this point as well. And I came up with a really cool kids' room, which I was so proud of. Like when I finished it, it's probably like the the best kids room, I mean in my opinion, that I've done so far, because I'm not great on kids rooms, but by the time the build was finished, it's got to be up there. I even considered sharing it itself, but unfortunately it didn't work with the photo, so I didn't in the end. But yes, so the hallway colours are just kind of like a peachy colour, I guess, just upstairs, just something bright, and I like that colour. I really like that colour, and it's a colour that I have actually had in my hallways, like in the past. So, I mean, when I used to live with my parents, I think one of the first houses that I can remember living in had that colour in the upstairs hallway. So, and actually a similar pattern, but we had panelling across, so it had like half wood and then half wallpaper at the top. So, yeah, I like that style. It's definitely me. So yes, this was the upstairs area, I guess, up here. I mean, I was just trying to figure out like what would be up there and what they would actually have there. I guess it's a bit unusual to be putting boots upstairs, because then you'd have to traipse down in them and you get like mud everywhere, but it seemed like a good idea at the time. So bear with me, because sometimes I don't think about every decision like while I'm doing something. Sometimes I just kind of zone out, and I guess that's what I was doing while I was doing the decoration. So I went with a really just small rug at the front, but I really love my patterns in The Sims 4. That's one thing that I really love to put, like, you know, inside the houses and have on the rugs, because I really like pattern rugs. So yes, I was trying to find a good way that I could really fill it up and make it look quite casual up here. So not put too many sofas, and you know, just kind of keep it open and bright as well, because bright is so important in my builds, like to live in as well. I mean, to actually see the Sims like living in the houses. I think that a house being bright is one of the most important things that a house can have, because I have made houses before that have been dark and gloomy, and they're very difficult to like actually use. Like, they're very difficult to see what's happening, and it's just, you know, I suppose like from the earlier Sims games, especially like when the Sims used to get actually depressed if they didn't have too much light. I don't know how it is in The Sims 4, because I've never actually been in that situation, but you know, just from there, like, I guess it was just kind of in my head that every room has to be bright, so I always try to do that. And this room was like a peachy brown colour, I guess, kind of a light brown. Lots of different things inside this room. It's a big room, actually. It's a big double bedroom, and I guess this could potentially be a main bedroom as well. It's got two, because it's got this one as well, and they are next to each other, so there's two different styles going on. I mean, it just depends like what family lives here. One could even be converted into a teenage room, and what I'd do for that is I would change the wallpaper, probably, if it was a girl, or this room for a boy would be pretty good, I suppose. I mean, it's difficult to do a teenage boy's room, because usually they're quite dark, quite gloomy, posters everywhere, and surprisingly, I don't know, I don't know if we have any like people with rooms like this, but surprisingly, like when I've went to friends' houses when I was younger, like from school and stuff, every single teenage boy in my class had a generic room, which was basically like, it was the top one on the third floor, which had like an arch coming down, like where the ceiling was, and just like posters covering it. And I saw like every single room that I went in when I was younger, like that was just this generic kind of teenage boy room. So maybe this wouldn't be a good choice. And I wish that we could have archways and that we could use roof spaces. Like, that would be fantastic. I hope that something like that could come up in the future potentially, because attics could be very interesting. And that would be definitely something new that would be put in through The Sims 4, because I can't remember that being a thing in Sims 3. Like, I can remember having some kind of thing where we did have a little arch, but I can't remember if it was actually inside the roof at the top, which would be an interesting space to work around with. But then again, I suppose the problem would be then heights. because they'd have to be able to work out like so it works out perfectly without the Sim's head popping through the roof or something. I don't know. I do not know, but yes, that would be a fun idea, which I would love to see. And then this room was the one that I was talking about before. So this did turn out to be like a child and baby room. So I was thinking that maybe the child would be a girl. Baby could be any gender, but that was just like what I thought at the time. And it changes around a lot in a minute, so you will see what I mean. But it does, like, it comes a long way from where we are now. So it's, yeah, like it's an interesting room by the time that it's finished, and it's one that I actually might consider saving in my catalogue just to get the basic idea of, so I could use this kind of room again because I was very happy with it. And it actually reminded me of like my sister's room when we were growing up. She had a room very similar to this because she loves like blue and purple. Apart from she had those like really strange beanie babies everywhere. I don't know if anyone else used to collect those, but my family used to be like crazy on those. And for some reason, my sister used to keep them all in boxes. It was actually a really weird, creepy room, like thinking back, because there were all these just like glass boxed, or like, I don't know, well, plastic box, but we used to call it like glass boxed beanie babies that were just like stacked up, which I suppose would look very strange and creepy to anybody else, but just looked perfectly normal to us. So this room was actually meant to be the dressing room, or like a room where nothing really happened, because let's face it, like if it's a real room, there's always one of these in somebody's house somewhere. Like there's always a room that just isn't being used, or there's like storage space somewhere, like even if it's in the shed, just somewhere to basically put stuff. But then I thought I wouldn't do that, and I'd change it into a little bit of a playroom. So that's what I did, because I really wanted to expand some more stuff, and I thought with the baby, for when it grows up, then I might want to play with the sister or the brother and do that. So that's why I did that. And then this room was just another bathroom, because I'm really big on putting a lot of bathrooms in at the moment, because I really had a good look at my other builds, and when I was actually using some of them, I actually realised I don't put in a lot of bathrooms. So that is something that I'm trying to do a little bit more of as well. I'm trying to focus a little bit more on that. And then we had the outside space to fill, which I love that hedge. Like seriously, I never knew that we could actually shape the hedges, the green hedges. So that is something that I do try to include a lot. And especially in my most recent builds, like I really do try to do that, because I think it's such a fun thing to be able to do. So that was the build, and I really hope that you have enjoyed it. And yes, I hope to see you all soon for my next videos. Thanks everyone so much for watching, and I'll speak to you all soon. Bye!